All right, this is part 3 in my 3-part PR training. And basically, what I'm teaching writers and marketers how to do is how to create a process whereby you can reach the press. And so, if you don't have a press agency, or even if you do and just want to understand kind of the inner workings of how this industry functions and how you can get content to a journalist or an editorial leader for placement, that's what this 3-part series is all about. And at my copywriting agency, Hire a Writer, I train writers on PR training because I think it's very valuable for you to be fluent in news, for you to understand how the news works, how content gets decided on, how you can get your content placed in news publications. And I think that that is a worthy ambition, and I think it is often a very valuable part of an overarching content strategy. So we have already gone through, in the first video, I covered prospecting. Basically, what are the vetting criteria? How do you find, the platforms you want to be on? How do you find the journalists you want to reach? And then how do you actually reach them? And then we talked about pitching in the second video, which is essentially learning all the different kinds of pitches that you can create, and then what the kind of attributes or the makeup of those pitches are, and then how you go about putting them together and sending them to journalists. And then today I want to talk to you about nurturing. So the piece of, the best PR people in the world are super scrappy. They are super diligent. They are super dedicated. They don't take no for an answer. And there is a level of tenacity to being really good at PR that is irreplaceable. And sometimes it's just a personality thing. Some people are just really good at it. They just don't give up. And that can be especially important as, the press and news stories and sources become more crowdsourced. So we've watched HARO and Help a Reporter Out and some of these other things, kind of rise to popularity. And so it's becoming a little easier for journalists to find sources. And so getting in front of them can be a little bit harder. And we think that the digital world has made it easier, but actually it's made it easier to tune out. Right? It's made it easier for journalists to tune us out, to just not open the email, to not look at the DM, to be less engaged than they normally maybe would have been 25 years ago. But it is what it is. We're in the digital world now, and our only opportunity for the most part is not to call, but to email or to DM and to reach these people through digital means. So I want to make sure that you understand what it would really take to nurture a press lead. So let's assume that we've gone through all of our due diligence. We've gone through the phases that I described earlier, and you're in their inbox, right? You have the opportunity. You've figured out that they're the right person. It's the right platform. You've put together a thoughtful pitch, and now you're actually doing the outreach process. PR lead nurturing. Let's talk a little bit about what it takes. Bulldogs win. Okay? People who are persistent, consistent and persistent. It is important that you have enough social emotional intelligence to read the room and know when to pause. Because at the end of the day, there is a fine line between being consistent and persistent and being belligerent and obnoxious. And you don't want to be the latter. But I would say, don't throw in the towel or give up entirely unless someone tells you, stop contacting me. You need to emotionally be prepared for that to be the end of the conversation, because it is. In the training that I went through, we do this training internally, so that's why it's here. Let me turn off the picture-in-picture so you can see the whole thing. So we do this training internally, and when we do, I talk about the 3 phases. So these are the 3 contact phases that you go through with in the process of pitching and nurturing. The first touch should only ever be, in my opinion, and honestly, these principles apply pretty broadly to DMs as well. So I would say, take this and use it in other places if you can or want to. First touch should always be a compliment or a kudos, an observation, a quote from their article or podcast if you're reaching out to a journalist directly and not an editorial leader, an alert that you're going to share their work on social. That's a really nice non-threatening one. You can always be like, I thought this article was so insightful, slip into their DMs and be like, hey, I'm going to share this on my feed, just wanted to say thanks for the great work. Do something to introduce yourself to them, to insert yourself into their world that has nothing to do with the pitch itself. Because it is important that you act human. You are human, presumably, if you're listening to this video. I don't know, do bots listen to YouTube's? Probably. But that's key, is to kind of start off with a human touch and being genuine and not asking first. First, you kind of give. First, you extend. First, you reach out and you don't ask for anything. But in phase 2, you start asking. Okay. Hopefully, they'll respond. So hopefully, your second touch can be a response to their response to you. That they said something back. Even if it was just thanks, right? Okay, that's something. You have caught their attention and they are willing to interact with you on some level. That's great. Then you want to ask for permission to send them a pitch. So the goal is to ask and keep the dynamic power balance in their favor. Negotiation skills come into play here a lot. If you haven't watched like Chris Voss's masterclass or something, go watch it. It's very interesting to learn how you do the dance, how to create the psychological dynamic whereby somebody wants to feels like they have power and they want to give you what you want. That's kind of the way to be winsome and to win. So if you're on DMs, you want to get the conversation over into email. That would be, like, to my thinking, the highest priority. You don't ever want to stay on DMs. DMs can get lost. Emails can get lost too, but less likely. There's better attention played. I would say, like, the attention currency you generate from an email is superior to what you generate from a DM. So you want to be thoughtful and try to move the conversation into more like serious, like you and I are actually talking now, kind of feel, as opposed to just kind of staying in the DMs. And then phase 3 is the first pitch into the last ditch. And this is not I don't mean this is like a 1-point interaction. This can be a series of interactions, but it's essentially the broad phase by which you then start to send them pitches. And you can ask for feedback, you can offer things, you can have kind of, hopefully, it morphs into something of a dialogue. And then you continue to communicate with them until they tell you to stop. Like, until they're like, we aren't going to cover this. I don't have whatever. And a lot of times they'll be like, I don't have editorial power. I don't decide what I write about, if you're talking to like a journalist or something. And then you say, great, would you put me in touch with your editor? Right? Think about what you can get from them. Don't consider anything to ever be a closed door except an actual closed door. That's really where you cultivate the right attitude to be good at this. I want to make sure always that people who are doing PR lead nurturing are ready to be vetted. By which I mean, and I said this I think in one of the previous videos, you need to be ready for people to be looking back at you and into you and investigating the company you're writing on behalf of, investigating you personally, which means you need to have some social proof. You need to have bylines if you can. You need to have attribution, meaning that you have credit to your name of things that have been written or done. You need to have a presence. Okay, that's very important. And then on social media. So a lot of writers make the mistake of not being professional on social media, of having like a lot of personal accounts that are public. There needs to be a clear understanding of who you are and what you do. And you need to be Googleable in the right way. Obviously, if you're Googleable in the wrong way, that's something you may not be able to help, but do your best to drown it out with good things. The second thing you need to prepare to be vetted, prepare to be questioned. Okay, you need to be ready at all times with examples of what you're talking about, examples of your work, examples of the proof of the feature you're asking for, examples, okay? And you need to have ideas ready to go all the time because you will get asked for them. If you're in an actual real live fire conversation with a journalist, you want to be ready. If you are in a conversation with an editor, you want to be ready to offer as many ideas as possible because 18 of them won't work and one of them might, okay? Volume is important when it comes to creativity in this space, and speed is of the essence. So, I talked before about how editorial cycles can be quite lengthy in actual news publications, especially tier 1 news publications. It could be 6-9 months out that they're planning their calendars and that they're planning their stories and coverage. And yet, if you are in the pitch process and you are nurturing a lead, you need to get back to them immediately. And you need to be able to quickly call up ideas, quickly call up references, quickly get in touch with the kinds of resources that they're asking for. So that is very important. And then you need to be prepared to be negotiated. So I said first, prepare to be vetted, prepare to be questioned, and then prepare to negotiate. You need to have value add offers ready to go. If you do this, I will do that. You need to have alternatives ready to suggest. Okay, you didn't like those. We'll hear 3 other things we've been thinking about, or 2 other initiatives we're working on, or here's another person on our leadership team who would love to be featured. You need to have a secondary timeline ready to follow, okay? So that you say like, yeah, we would love to be in the March edition. We can't be? All right, great. We'd love to be in the October edition. Okay, so you need to be prepared to flex and be agile because, again, the timelines may not match up with what a typical marketing timeline would look like. This is press. It's a different world. And you need to be willing to flex, but always reestablish value. Like, I am serious about this. I am prepared to help you do your job well. And then the last thing is you have to prepare to be rejected. When is it really a no? You need to understand that. What else could you ask for if the answer is no? You don't have editorial authority? Great. Could I get in touch with your editor? Is there another time of year you think you'd be covering this? Do you have any colleagues you think would be interested in this story? Think about other ways that you can navigate the situation so that you don't walk away with nothing. And then obviously maintain dignity. Like, don't be the pestery. Like, there's a difference between somebody who is thoughtfully, strategically persistent and somebody who's just a clanging bell, somebody who's just real obnoxious, okay? You need to be careful. And you need to make it personal. Regardless, one of the easiest, you have to remember, like, it's not actually easy for people to reject other people. And it's easier when it's like keyboard warriors across a screen. Like, people aren't thinking of you as a person, and so it's easy for them to dismiss you, brush you off, that kind of thing, which is part of why the omni-channel pursuit that I talked about, I think in the first video, prospecting is so powerful, because if you can go after them find them on Twitter, find them on LinkedIn, find them on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, you've shown up in more areas of their life, and you've proven yourself to be a real person. And it's a lot harder for people to reject a real person than it is for them to just reject a random email pitch from somebody that they feel like, doesn't really exist in the real world. So it's important that you prepare to be rejected, but that you are also, conscious of how you are going to make a mark, how you are going to, establish yourself as memorable. And then remembering too, like, at the end of the day, you can nurture these press leads and you can build relationships and all of that. And the actual opportunity may not materialize for quite some time. You need to be flexible in your expectations of how long it takes to establish a press presence. Because one of the things that you need to constantly be remembering as you're going through these 3 stages of press that I've talked about over these 3 videos, prospecting and pitching and nurturing, the idea is that you don't want to just be a flash in the pan. You don't want to have a press release that just goes viral. You don't want to have, something that just gets shared widely. We know statistically, research has shown that that is not actually the most valuable way to build a business or to build a brand. Much more valuable is the steady, consistent, ever-increasing audience that is conscious and aware of what that company does in the world, of the value that they provide. So thinking about press not as an initiative that you kind of like plug in and unplug when you need it, but rather thinking of press as a long-term way to have impact, to contribute to larger conversations, to be a thought leader in a specific market or industry. Thinking about ways that the company is building an actual solid, long, enduring brand by having press coverage. So it's not about being popular. It's not about going viral. It's not about having, these short spikes of attention. It's about creating enduring, ongoing impact. So I would just suggest to you that that's kind of the constant ongoing check as you put these measures into place and as you practice, which is absolutely the way to get good at it. Consider the long term and consider what you're really trying to build and grow over a long period of time. And that will protect you from making silly decisions, from walking away from things too fast, from giving up. Because you know that if you're sticking in there, you're going to build something that's worth it. Okay, so that's press. So those are kind of the 3 phases. I recommend that you kind of go through those, that you start practicing your pitches, practicing your outreach, brushing up your own personal brand so that you're prepared to be vetted, working on your negotiation skills so you're prepared to be questioned, and, just building a thick skin so that you're prepared to be rejected when you are sometimes and often when you do these kind of efforts. But know that there is inherent value in them. And as a writer and as a marketer, if you can kind of learn how these things work, you'll be able to manage press people really well, and you'll be able to make a broader impact and build your own network, which has kind of ongoing and continuous value for yourself. Follow our blog. You can head to hirewriter.us/learn. We've got lots of blogs. You can learn how to upskill your writing skills. You can learn about content strategy. You can kind of learn about creative writing, storytelling, all the different things that we have there. Subscribe to my channel. I'm here to be helpful to writers and marketers who want to go deeper and do great work, and I wish you all the best.